there, and welcome to the Crux. I'm Eben Burr, the president of Taylor's Asset Management. Today, joined by legendary Meb Faber, CIO and co-founder of Cambria, as well as the host of the excellent podcast, The Meb Faber Show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man, great to be here.
In sunny, beautiful
South Beach.
South Beach. As many cops as there are people.
It's spring break, St. Patty's, all wrapped in one, and future-proof.
Beautiful. So we've talked about 351 exchanges before, which are fascinating and kind of new part of the ETF ecosystem. How do you think the ETF world is going to change with the proliferation of 351s?
I think there's going to be a revolution in how people think about tax location, meaning, how they think about what funds, stocks go into taxable accounts versus tax exempt, like retirement accounts, but also on the product side too. And we've already seen this starting to develop where there's all sorts of really cool ideas coming out. 351 being one specific tool. And let's be clear, this is an amazing period for US investors. We're just coming off a 10 bagger in US stocks since 2009. So a lot of people have a good problem, which is they have big gains, and so if you own NVIDIA or Mag 7 or tech, or even, I think the Qs are almost a 20 bagger since 2009. Maybe not so much now. We're recording this in Q1 of 25. So things coming off a little bit, but they have big gains. But a lot of people, and this has been true for investors forever, is I can't sell this. I know it's expensive. I know I don't want it anymore. My portfolio is offsides because the tax man's going to kill me. And so you're starting to get some solutions that I think can help alleviate that problem.
Right. A lot of people, nobody's ever gone broke paying taxes on their gains, but it feels terrible. And even though their portfolios are out of whack now, nobody wants to do it. So with a syndicated 351, what's the most challenging part of that?
Well, we got to make sure everyone knows what 351 is, which is essentially the best lead-in example I always give is for real estate. A lot of people know what a 1031 is, where generational wealth has been built for investors who have bought a building, bought some condos, a hotel, whatever it may be. And then 10, 20, 50 years later, they want to sell it, move into something else. And you can do a 1031 where you sell it and roll it into a new property, and it's tax deferred. Now, you're not washing the taxes. That would be illegal, of course, but you defer it. And that becomes a huge benefit of compounding. And so historically, that hasn't been available for stocks, right? So you bought IBM, Berkshire, or Microsoft a long time ago, and you're sitting on these massive gains. Historically, your choice has been to just hold on to it, donate it when you die, donate it to charity, on, or you simply just sell it and pay the gain. But now 351 lets you seed, and 351's been around forever, right? This isn't something like totally new. It's been in the tax code for many decades, but the modern implementation is with an ETF, which is particularly interesting because they're tax efficient already. So people can seed the fund at its launch and get the ETF in return, and then be able to diversify, be able to defer those taxes instead of having to pay them today, which is a pretty powerful feature.
Absolutely. So what are people with the syndicated 351? What's the hardest part of that? And how do you think it's being misunderstood in the world right now?
There's now and maybe in a few years. The hardest part right now is education, right? I just did a recent talk to a group of 300 certified financial planners, and every single one of them had heard of 1031, and not a single person in the audience had heard of 351.
Yeah.
So there's clearly an education gap, and there's going to be some work that needs to be done there. But that'll change, stuff like this, chatting about it. I think will really start to move the needle. And as more funds launch, bigger funds launch, people will start to pay attention. Second is that anytime you have a new structure, a new process, the piping, the plumbing needs to get built. So not only are investors and advisors not familiar with it, but also the gatekeepers, the big brokerages, the custodians, everyone involved in the process. Fidelity and Schwab love it. They're totally on board. They see this as a really awesome idea to be able to offer their end investors. So that they've been extremely supportive. But as you go down the list of other people involved in the ecosystem, it's also, a new idea for them. So they got to get up to speed. But so in a year or two from now, hopefully everyone will be doing it. The process will be more software and smooth. Right now, it's very manual. You got to go through your account, see what sort of gains you have, make sure the portfolio qualifies. Like, yeah, I know you got a bunch of Dogecoin and Fartcoin; those don't count as contributors. Private assets don't count, on and on. So really, it's public stocks, and the best part is public ETFs. So ETFs are pass through, meaning it looks through the underlying holdings, which is pretty cool because you can submit those as well.
Yeah, I think there's among those who know, which is a small number, as you said, there's a ton of excitement, and every person that I talk to about it, then that amplifies the excitement by one more person. But there's still just a ton of people who are like, "Ugh, I'm a little scared of like this new thing," which I think, to your point, a year, 2 years from now, everybody in the like sub Vanguard level is going to do this when they launch.
I always joke. I say Goldman Sachs just did one for like a billion, billion and a half, and I say they have much more expensive lawyers than we do. So if they okayed it, on and on. And there's been over 100 of these already, so it's not like we're inventing the wheel here. I think the challenge will be there's the light bulb goes off immediately for people that have this problem. So if you have a concentrated portfolio, maybe you were 60-40 back in 2009 and US stocks had gone up so much, now you're intertaxable. Now you're kind of stuck. You might even be like 80-20, 90-10 now, right? But you're like, I can't rebalance back because I got to pay all these taxes. So either I'm going to bite that bullet or you have this really concentrated portfolios and maybe you got a lot of NVIDIA. A second one is direct indexing, and then kind of just rebalancing the portfolio back to target. So people that hear this are like, oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
We talk to a lot of advisors that are like, I've been waiting for something like this for 5, 10, 20 years. There's some, ideas on the periphery that are okay, like exchange funds have been around. Eaton Vance and others have been selling those since the 70s, but they tend to be a little more problematic for some reasons, but still a solution for some people. And there's some evolution going on there too as well.
I think you mentioned that there have been over 100 of these done. Most of those are rolling separate accounts into 351s, but I think there have only been 3 syndicated 351s where you're basically raising the assets from scratch, and you're one of those 3.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say any innovation. My implementation was, why should this only be available behind some velvet rope? I said this should be available to investors everywhere. It's very democratizing. You don't have to be accredited or qualified like you do for an exchange fund. And so it really could benefit everyone. The challenge with that, of course, is that, again, it's hard to work when you're herding cats of 10, 100, 1,000 investors that are not all under your umbrella. When it's under your umbrella, it's a little easier. But, I think you'll see software eventually solves this and it becomes more of a streamlined click button sort of process. Right now, it's a little more manual, but that's okay because we're kind of learning best practices as we go along too.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah.
Join my